She walked in like anyone else. No entourage, no briefcase, just her phone, ID, and a calm, confident energy that seemed to unsettle people who weren't used to seeing power in the form of a black woman. The bank lobby was quiet, sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A soft, instrumental version of a pop song echoed through the speakers. A man in a grey suit glanced up from his laptop. Our security guard shifted slightly at the sight of her walking in, his eyes scanning her from head to toe, lingering just a bit too long, like he was trying to place her, or judge her. Ayanna Brooks barely noticed. She'd done this exact thing hundreds of times, walked into a bank, made a transaction, left. But today wasn't like the others. Today she wasn't stepping into just any bank. This was her bank, one she had built from the ground up. Every wall, every desk, every computer terminal in that place had her signature behind it. If not literally, then by force of vision, investment, and execution. Still, no one in the room seemed to know who she was. And Ayanna didn't mind. Power didn't need to announce itself. She walked up to the teller window, offered a polite smile, and slid her ID and account information across the counter. The teller, a young man, early 30s, navy shirt, no tie, glanced at her paperwork. Then at her. Then back at the screen. Something shifted in his face. "Excuse me," he said, leaning forward slightly. "Are you sure you have an account here?" Ayanna didn't blink. "Yes," she replied evenly. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." He looked again. She could see it. The flicker of suspicion in his eyes, the faint crease forming between his brows. He typed something. Waited. Typed again. A pause. "I'm sorry," he said slowly, "but I'm not finding anything under this name. You said you're trying to withdraw from a business account?" "I said I'm withdrawing from my account," Ayanna replied, calm, controlled. "Personal account, last name Brooks. You can verify it with the manager if necessary." The teller hesitated. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but he didn't type. Instead, he leaned back and motioned subtly to someone behind the glass. A supervisor, an older woman in a tight bun, walked over. There was whispering, quick glances. Then the supervisor took over at the window. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said, a little too formally, "but without additional verification, we can't proceed with this transaction." Ayanna leaned in slightly. "You have my ID, my account number, the phone app with my account balance. What exactly is missing?" The supervisor stiffened. "It's just protocol." "No," Ayanna replied, her voice low but sharp. "It's not protocol, it's profiling." There it was, that flicker of discomfort. Not anger. Not yet. Just the first signs of unease, like someone realizing they've just poked something much bigger than they expected. The supervisor didn't respond. Instead, she gave a forced smile, told Ayanna she was welcome to return with additional documentation, and walked away. Ayanna stood there for a moment, silent. The teller stared down at his screen, avoiding eye contact. People behind her shifted awkwardly in line. She could feel the heat, not of embarrassment, but of insult. This wasn't the first time someone had underestimated her, but it was the last time it would happen in her own building. She turned without a word and walked out. 7 minutes. That's how long she had been in the lobby. 7 minutes of being questioned, doubted, and dismissed, in a space that existed because of her vision, her money, her leadership. And now it was time to remind them exactly who she was. She stepped into her black Tesla parked in the reserve space just across the street, slid into the driver's seat, exhaled once, then opened her phone. 3 taps. A name appeared on the screen. Anderson, VP of Operations. She hit call. "Yeah," she said when he picked up. "I just left the Westbrook branch. I need you to be in my office in 10, and bring the footage." There was a silence on the other end. Then, "Understood." She ended the call. By the time Ayanna arrived back at headquarters, just 6 blocks away, her face was unreadable. She didn't storm in, she didn't slam doors, she didn't raise her voice. That was never her way. Power doesn't need volume. Anderson was already waiting. He had the security feed pulled up on his tablet, paused right at the moment the teller rejected her ID. Ayanna watched it twice, not because she needed to, just to confirm what she already knew. There was no error, no confusion, just judgment, and poor judgment at that. She closed the tablet, handed it back. "Have them both removed," she said, "and send the staff an updated memo on recognition protocol. It's not about me, it's about who else they might treat that way." Anderson nodded, already typing. But that wasn't the end. Ayanna knew this wasn't just about two employees making a mistake. It was about a culture, a subtle, dangerous one, that still couldn't reconcile blackness with authority, with ownership, with power. And that culture wasn't going to change by quietly correcting mistakes behind closed doors. No, this time she had something else in mind. If you're enjoying the story and want to see what's next, subscribe to the channel now, because what's next will surprise you. They say power is quiet. But when Ayanna Brooks stepped into the Westbrook branch the next morning, silence followed her like a shadow. This time, she didn't come alone. She didn't bring lawyers or cameras. She didn't arrive with a press release, just her executive assistant, a leather portfolio, and a simple plan: accountability. The same security guard from the day before stood by the entrance. His eyes widened as he recognized her. He started to say something, but Ayanna didn't break stride. Her heels echoed against the polished tile, the sound crisp, intentional. Heads turned, whispers rippled. The morning rush had just begun. Customers were scattered through the lobby, a few waiting in line. The tellers were in position, except 2 spots were empty: the young man from yesterday and the supervisor in the tight bun. Gone. In their place, a new team, nervous, attentive. One of them, a woman in her 40s, gave a polite nod. "Good morning, Ms. Brooks," she said quietly. Ayanna didn't respond. She didn't have to. She walked straight past the counter, through the glass doors that led to the private offices. A branch manager, middle-aged, pinstripe suit, sweat already forming at his temples, met her in the hallway. "Ms. Brooks," he stammered, "we've already taken steps to—" "Save it," she said, not harshly, but cold enough to freeze him mid-sentence. Inside the conference room, a group of regional staff waited. They stood as she entered. She motioned for them to sit. "I'm not here to hear apologies," she began, placing the leather portfolio on the table. "I'm here to make sure no other black woman or anyone walks into a branch of this institution and leaves feeling the way I did yesterday." The room was still. Ayanna opened the portfolio and removed a printed report: incident summary, employee records, security logs. She had everything, and she wasn't there to debate facts. The facts were settled. Now came the consequences. "There is no excuse," she continued, "for frontline staff not recognizing key account holders. There is no excuse for denying service to someone with verified ID and active credentials. And there is definitely no excuse for assuming that someone doesn't belong based on the color of their skin." A younger man on her left, mid-20s, probably a rising analyst, shifted uncomfortably. She turned to him. "What's your name?" "D. Devon, ma'am." "You ever walk into a place where people assumed you didn't belong?" He paused, then nodded. "Yes?" "That's how you break trust," Ayanna said, quietly, invisibly. "It's not loud, it's not violent, but it erodes the foundation. And if we don't fix that culture at the root, it doesn't matter how good our numbers look." She closed the folder. "Effective immediately, we're implementing new protocols, not just for identification, but for recognition. Staff training, quarterly audits, secret shopper evaluations, focused not just on service quality, but bias detection. If you don't know who your top clients are, you don't belong behind the counter, period." No one spoke. Ayanna stood, calm but commanding. Dismissed. She left the room like she came in, measured, deliberate, untouchable, but the story didn't end there. That same week, Ayanna gave a keynote at a private equity summit in San Francisco. She didn't mention the bank incident by name. She didn't need to. Instead, she talked about the unseen tax of being underestimated, about the sharp edge that forms when leadership and identity collide. "When people ask me what it's like being a black woman in power," she told the crowd, "I say this. It's like being handed the keys to a building and still being asked to wait in the lobby." The audience was silent. Then, applause, long, earnest. Some stood, but none of it was performative, because Ayanna wasn't asking for praise. She was delivering a warning. The following month, 2 more branch managers were quietly reassigned. A new policy under her name was rolled out across all 60 branches, equity in service standards, and tucked into every staff manual under the header Leadership Culture was a one-line reminder that became internal legend. Back at the Westbrook branch, business continued. New staff, new energy. And on the wall behind the main teller counter, a framed portrait of Ayanna Brooks now hung. No plaque, no fanfare, just presence. Because if anyone had questions about who she was, they wouldn't need to ask again. That's what real power looks like. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't even need to raise its voice. It walks in, gets denied, walks out. And 7 minutes later, makes history. If you felt that, make sure to hit that like button and share this story. Subscribe for more narratives that don't just entertain, they remind you who's really running the room.